Okay, good morning and welcome to our April 9th, 2024, Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. board briefing meeting. Let the record reflect that we have three commissioners here, so we do have a quorum. I have Commissioner Kearns, Commissioner Waldrop, and Commissioner Cuny. It looks like I'm just seeing Commissioner French come into his office, so he'll be here shortly. And then Commissioner Jordan will be joining us around 10:30 today. So we've got a busy day, so we'll go ahead and get started. The first item on today's agenda is Erica Shaw with the Spokane County Fair briefing. We are not going to be able to do that, so we can check that off and we will go directly to Dr. Zing, our medical examiner. I see you online.
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. I was just going to brief you guys on the annual report. We've got that complete and it's going to be on our website tomorrow. So I just wanted to give you guys a sneak peek as to what's been happening in Spokane County over 2023. So could I get the first slide, Ron, please? So the topic we get a lot of questions on is the overdose deaths. So that's what I wanted to start with. This slide is just kind of a filler slide, but basically shows you some of the drugs and drug paraphernalia that we've been seeing at the scenes. The Mexi pills are those bottom two slides, in the one in the vial and then on the foil. Most people are smoking those, so you can see the lighter there, and then they heat it, put the lighter under the foil and heat the pill and inhale the smoke. Next slide, the real slide. So this graph didn't make it into the annual report, but I wanted to show it to you anyway, because I think it really nicely highlights how overdose deaths have increased over time, not just in sheer numbers, but also as a proportion of our total cases. So overdose deaths in the medical examiner caseload have gone from being about 12% of our total cases in 2018 to more than 28% last year. And I think it's also important to note that looking at all deaths in Spokane County, not just medical examiner, but also non-medical examiner deaths, overdose deaths have gone from being about 1.5% of total deaths in the county to about 5% of total deaths last year. So pretty significant rise in overdose deaths. Next slide. One of the main drivers, of course, of the overdose deaths is fentanyl. This graph is on page 12, and I just wanted to kind of pull that out because I think it shows nicely the dramatic rise in fentanyl-related deaths in recent years. In 2018, there was one fentanyl-related death, and you can see how cases have steadily risen since then. And then the smaller graph in the corner is quarter over quarter from the first quarter of 2023 to the first quarter of 2024. You can see that that slope is still upward. So unfortunately, the fentanyl-related deaths are still rising. We have still, even with some cases that are pending presumed overdoses, the ones we've been able to sign out indicate this pretty significant upward trend still this year. Next slide. I also want to point out, though, that we have heroin-related deaths have gone down. That's mainly because the fentanyl has sort of taken over that market. But we're still seeing a rise in other illicit drugs, and primarily methamphetamine, to a lesser degree cocaine. And these drugs are most often seen in combination. So an overdose, if it's not just a single fentanyl or single methamphetamine, will typically be mixed, most commonly fentanyl and methamphetamine or fentanyl and cocaine. The next slide. I want to also highlight, this graph is from page 11. A major trend that we've been seeing over the last couple of years is a significant increase in fatal accidental overdoses in middle and later adulthood, so beginning at age 50 and onward. And it's really an interesting, oh, sorry, that's on the next. Yeah, there you go. It's really an interesting phenomenon because this is an age group that has traditionally been thought to be beyond the years of illicit drug use. So early in my career, we typically didn't even test people in this age range, like 50 and above, because the prevalence of drug use was so low. But we're seeing now, as you see, like people in their 70s and 80s still using illicit drugs and overdosing on illicit drugs. And it's significant because, the drugs not just directly kill people through overdose, but chronic drug use can cause or can really accelerate things like heart disease, lung disease, liver disease, kidney disease. And so in addition to the burden of actually killing people, there's a significant impact on just kind of general health of the population. And this isn't just in Spokane County, it's a national trend. There's there's sort of two schools of thought, or there's two main drivers that have been brought out in the literature. One of those is that there's a generation that has used drugs at a higher rate than previous generations and has not really aged out of the drug use, but they're continuing to use drugs. And then also there's a contribution of a group of chronic pain patients who are sort of suffering unintended consequences of the opioid prescribing guidelines. The guidelines were intended, of course, to cut down on unnecessary prescribing of opiates, but have also impacted people who now can't get enough of pain medication to last them through the month. And so they're turning to the illicit market to kind of supplement their medication supply. While we're on this graph, I want to also note that there has not been a spike in youth or teen overdoses, at least not fatal overdoses. So that is positive news. We've had a lot of questions over the last year about this, what was perceived as an increase in youth drug use or overdoses, and that has not been borne out by the numbers. Next slide. And then not to harp on this, but back to the topic of drug use indirectly contributing to death, I want to also point out that in addition to causing or accelerating natural diseases, drugs and alcohol also play a role in a lot of other accidental deaths. So falls, motor vehicle crashes, drowning. These are some of the top accidental causes of death in Spokane County. And a lot of these people also have drugs on board that might be impacting their decision-making or their coordination or their ability to remove themselves from dangerous situations. So another example of not just the direct impact of drug use, but kind of the general burden of drug use. Next slide. Enough about drugs. I want to just highlight another couple of things that of note that occurred in 2023. First, there was a big jump in pedestrian fatalities. As you can see, this graph is from page 13 of the annual report. Also on that page is a little map. We're experimenting with some additional visual aids. But if you want to see where these pedestrians are being struck, there's a little map that'll show you the locations of those. And, not to harp again on the indirect contribution of drugs, but further into the annual report, you'll notice that about 3/4 of these pedestrians had one or more drugs in their system, which may have impacted their decision-making on where and when to cross the road, and also made them less able to respond quickly to oncoming vehicles. The next slide. I want to also highlight what I'm not sure is a trend yet, but something to note, which is that while the total number of homicides in Spokane County didn't change significantly, there was a notable increase in child homicides. So we had 6 homicide victims under the age of 10 in 2023 versus none in that age range in 2022. So like I say, I'm not sure this is a trend yet. It might just be a blip, but something to note from last year. Next slide. And lastly, there was a slight increase in the number of child and teen suicides, as you can see in this graph from 2022 to 2023. So again, I'm not sure if it's a trend, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on in the coming year so that we can see if there's any developing trends year over year. So that's the quick overview of the highlights from the annual report. The full document, like I say, will be available on our website tomorrow. And I think it's also been provided to you all for your reading pleasure. Any questions for me?
Any questions? No, thanks for all the good work that you're doing. I know you guys are very busy there. Yeah, I look forward to seeing the whole report though, and seeing, like, especially some of the mapping and all of that. So thank you for that. I think, I don't know, have we received it or?
Electronically.
The whole report is in. Okay. There we go. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Do you have anything else for us?
Nothing else at the moment. I may have some exciting news in the near future, so stay tuned.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks
Thank you.
everyone.
Okay, so next, that's going to take us to Kyle, or I see Matt Zarakor. And Kyle's online, so. I'm not sure who's going.
I can go.
Okay,
I think Ron might have just like a one page to get us oriented. It's a vacation. It's Willow Lake Road. Next slide. Perfect. So you can see on the vicinity map on the left, this is out on the West Plains along Willow Lake. If you're familiar with where that is, it's right along I-90 there. And there's a short piece of right of way that runs between two properties. Willow Lake is a dead end east-west road, and it doesn't quite touch the lake. It's fortunate because there's state law that prevents us from vacating right of ways that access water bodies. But in this case, it does not get to the water body, and they've requested the vacation. It's not open currently, and we have no intention of opening this right of way. It only serves the two properties that are requesting the vacation. So no public benefit that we're seeing now or into the future, and we would support the vacation of that. Happy to answer any questions. Okay. I think there's a couple more I'll probably stick around for, but Kyle's here too.
okay. So the next one then is Kyle and Perkins.
I don't see Deborah, but I'm familiar with it. I'm happy to go through the presentation here.
Okay.
And answer any questions. Next slide, Ron. So this has to do with the county's railroad right of way that we're preserving for light rail that runs out through the valley. You can see on the overhead here, this the Barker Road interchange with Boone Avenue. That's a city Spokane Valley street. You're proposing to build a Circle K on the parcel below the little red square up on the screen. And to help facilitate better access, they've requested access across our right of way. And they already had an agreement for the existing, I believe it was an old gas station. And this is just moving it a little further to the east. This license agreement we're doing with them is revocable. So if at some point in the future, we need the right of way for other uses, we can revoke it and get rid of it altogether or change its location. And we support this, being revocable like it is, it gives us the flexibility in the future to do what we need to do. And in the current situation, they'll provide better access for the gas station and better traffic circulation. Happy to answer any questions. Sorry, we were ahead of schedule, Deborah.
All done.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, done. There you go. No questions. I think you're good.
And
Thanks for joining us, Deborah.
Great report.
Thank you.
Alan, I think we're moving so fast that Lewis isn't here yet for his.
Yeah, we may have to, yeah.
I can happily take this one if you'd like.
So there's Lewis just arrived, so,
On top of it.
All right. Thanks, Lewis.
okay. Thank you. We just, you're just gonna be ahead of schedule today, so.
Glad we walked down early then.
Exactly.
I'm Louis Graff, this is Hannah Thomas Call, and she works for Ben. And our item here is the undercrossing there on Highway 2 and our consultant selection process. So we have some slides there. Hannah, do you want to put all this together? And when Hannah kind of worked with purchasing on the consultant selection and the RFQ process that we went through. So I'll let her.
So this is all based on the septic tank elimination program, STEP, which began in 1984. So it's basically trying to get everyone off of septic systems and onto a sewering system to protect the aquifer underneath us. Throughout this whole process, it's been supplemented with grants from various sources. We invested a lot of money into this over the years, including $20 million over the past 5 years for an extension in Barker Road. Do the next slide, please. So the next part of continuing the STEP program is going to the north area of Spokane. And to do this, we need to go under both the highway up there and the railroad to get over to this eastern section. So this is partly funded by ARP grants for this eventual expansion. So right now what we're looking at is 6%. So we go to the next slide. So for this project right now, we're looking at the easement acquisition. So this is for both going under the railroads and some private property easements. So we need to go through a few properties to get over to a main road. We need to do right-of-way permitting both for the railroad and the highway, and design for the main sewer that would go under this railroad and highway. So construction for this would be anticipated all the way out in 2026. For the funding, it's about 250 to 300,000 from the ARP funds, and the rest will be from the general facilities funds. The next slide, please. So for the RFQ for this, we published this on March 4th, advertised through public purchasing and through the Spokesman Review. We closed it on March 20th. We received 2 proposals, which was great. It was about the right number that we were looking for. Welch Comer is one that we selected as the highest rated proposal based on their experience. And then we are right now seeking approval to select Welch Comer as our consultant and enter into a negotiation with them for the scope, fee, and our contract. And if everything goes well, we anticipate seeking board approval for the contract on April 23rd.
The schedule might be a little too aggressive. Might take us a bit longer to get the scope and fee negotiated with them and get the contract all ready to go, but that would be the earliest for sure that we would be going to council for, or to the board for contract approval. So just looking forward to today, just like I say, letting you know about the selection that we did, and just reiterating, this is only for, you know, design and permitting. In the contract, we would like to include the construction management portion, just so that we don't have to change order on those services in the future, you know, if this does go to construction. But yeah, this doesn't include any of the actual construction of the project. So do you have any questions on that?
So I do. So how big a project is this? I guess, and with using ARP dollars, it says you might have it done by the end of 2026. And just making sure what our needs are for having it the whole thing contracted or not.
Yeah, so originally we had 1.3 million of the ARP funds allocated to the project, but I think there's been some moving around of money. So now there's 250,000 of the ARP funds was, I think the money had gone to the new building and some other things. So so we're just looking at using the 250,000 of the ARP funds for the design and permitting, and anything over that we would cover with our general facilities funds that we have available. So we have general facilities funds sitting in our coffers that we can build the entire project. But instead of using 1.3 of ARP, we were looking to use about 250,000 of that instead.
Okay, and then Kyle, I see you raised your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to kind of preview to the board 2 components of this. So the reason we will be coming back to you very shortly, we've been working with Jeff and Heather, is that we don't think we can get to the construction component in the ARP timeframe, but we can get this whole scope of work completed. And we have confirmed with Jeff and Heather that as long as we keep the project moving forward, we can use these funds for design, right-of-way permitting, everything on the front end, as long as we continue on into construction, but we won't be on the ARP timeline for that. So we would be making a request to you in a future briefing to just shift some of the ARP that was allocated to this project to our ops facility project, where we could use every penny that we have, because that's all coming straight out of the road fund. So a little bit ahead of that, but I wanted you to know that we have been working very closely with Jeff and Heather with regards to the timing, and that's why we have structured it this way, to make sure we're all compliant with everything ARP.
Thank you, Scott.
And Louis, just to confirm, this project is really for just the boring underneath the highway and the railroad. It's the design for that particular portion of it to get ready for construction and to secure it right away. It doesn't do anything beyond that. Is that right?
The limits of the project, get the boring done. We do need to put the pipe in, under, so we don't have to open that up again. So there would be, we would like to take the boring from in the Moody corridor out to Yale. It wouldn't pick up any parcels, but it would only be basically a trunk extension and an undercrossing under the highway, but not serving new properties, just building that general facility with the project. So
Be dry line.
correct.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, and next is the Rockwell Affordable Housing Trust Fund Agreement. And we have Pavel. Thank you.
Wait, Madam Chair, Commissioners, the Rockwell rehabilitation, it was briefed and approved for funding around December, I believe, with the resolution. So we're just coming today to get approval to execute the contract. Scope of work and everything is set. We're going to be funding $850,000 with your approval. Just open for any questions that you may have for the project.
Apologize, because I'm going to say I'm not sure where this project is located.
No problem. So go ahead. So it's 28 units of affordable housing. I believe that one was Spokane Valley. So it's a fairly old building. We've been in contract with them, or we've had a covenant with them for, I believe it was 20 years, and it just it's going to end this year. So it'll be a very, very nice way of us to put some more money into the project, get it up to standard, and have another 15 years of affordability in that project.
South 90 in the valley, mid valley, so I believe it's in your district.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. This is
Thank
like,
you.
wow, we're gonna fly through this morning.
Having not on here yet, so can we skip over that?
Sure. Okay, so we'll go to Heather Arnold. Thank you, Heather, for being here. We'll let you go ahead and talk about the Washington Military Department FEMA Public Assistance Contract.
Yeah, we received our public assistance contract from FEMA back on the 19th. And we've since received the updated amendment that will open up categories C through G. So we now have access to all the available categories that will let us do all the debris cleanup, everything under the emergency work and the permanent work, plus our administrative costs. So we've received the contract and it will be before you this afternoon so that we can get it signed and back to the state.
Okay, so is it on our consent agenda?
Yes.
Already?
It is already on consent.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask where.
So this completes the process in terms of access to all of FEMA eligible grant funds. Okay.
Yeah, originally when they sent the contract, we had
Yeah.
categories A, B, and C,
Right.
which is very typical. And then before we could even get to past 2 more weeks, then they sent us the C through G, and they also opened it up for Whitman County.
Good. And Heather, if you could mention what additional funding this provides for us to do the right of way.
Yeah, that it'll let us do all the debris removal, so it should, and all the roads, any public utilities, so we should be able to cover all the tree removal, all of that kind of stuff.
which is good, given we've got, you know, a number of damaged trees along our right of way, in both the fires. That gives us some assistance to be able to remove those and protect the safety of, traveling public. Those possibly, falling in the future.
This is all the public assistance piece of it.
Yeah, for us, just.
And then, and you mentioned Whitman County, do they manage their own? funds?
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you.
So one of the things that has not been taken care of yet is debris removal in the lakes. I'm thinking specifically Medical Lake, Silver Lake, all of those lakes and stuff. And so and nobody wants to claim it. You know, you would think that the bodies of water are owned by the state would step in, and ecology is saying not our job, DNR saying not my job. And so I don't know whether any of this money in the public right away can be used for lake cleanup. But can you find out?
I can find out.
Because otherwise we've got a number of lakes out in the West Plains that have still got fire debris in them. That then, you know, several of the homes out there still use water out of the lake for potable water. So problem when the water is black instead of clear. So that would be great to find out. Thank you.
Find out.
Yeah, and it's item. See. 8 on today's agenda, so there we go, thank you. Any other questions? I think you're good, but as I think Jeff's here, so we
Yep.
could do the miscellaneous.
Go ahead.
Check this one off though.
So under miscellaneous, we want to do a quick update. You have multiple ARP resolutions on your 2 o'clock calendar today. One of them is there that we believe we're doing the will of the board. Just wanted to double confirm because it's beyond what we talked about last meeting. And so you'll recall when Scott was talking to you about the Monroe Court building, you had that chart of the different funding swaps to use the right account to pay for the right thing, which involved using ARP for the revenue replacement part of ARP was going to go to the Monroe Court. And then you were going to use general fund for the broadband. Because as you recall, the broadband timelines, ARP don't meet the other federal funds coming down. So one of the resolutions this afternoon is making that switch within ARP. It is clearly saying the board is planning to do the 9.6 and change, the same dollar amount of revenue replacement for broadband. And that it's saying we're gonna obligate with an MOU through the finance and budget department, the revenue replacement for Monroe Court, so it's fully obligated. If that transaction goes through, it would be done this year anyway. But just wanted to make sure we're not don't have the cart ahead of the horse, so to speak, on this resolution, and you guys get it back. So. That was our takeaway from your meeting, is wasn't expressly said.
And it was the movement of the broadband funds into general fund was swapping out other general fund dollars that were for capital. So it's a net neutral impact. And then we have similar language in there that says the intent of those dollars are to leverage them for matching funds for federal grants, but it allows the board some flexibility in the future if, you know, broadband's wildly successful and we only need 4 million in matching and we get $60 million in federal dollars. There's some choices the board could make in the future, but it does set it up for the intention of doing matching funds for federal grants for broadband.
And it's up to Lakewood, just like our ARP grants were. So it's up to 9.636.
Okay, does it still allow for the opportunity though, that if we don't get all the items that we wanted in broadband, that it still could go to some specific projects?
Yes.
It's listed as kind of like top priority would be to leverage matching funds, but also for on the ground projects, should it be needed for that. So it's listed as both eligible.
Okay, Because that was always the intent, was basically that $10 million to be matching or projects would be. As we
So
saw. how
That same
that's
intent is in this resolution.
Okay.
And then just quick, next week, you're gonna see a couple more resolutions with ARP. Gonna be finishing what's on your list today, but we needed to get the resolution numbers from your work today to actually put into the next resolutions for next week. So you'll see a couple more resolutions next week, moving the funds to that 3.3, 3.5, our internal categories for the staffing and the administrative needs. And that's what that's about, just kind of step 2 of what we're doing today.
So I guess, Randy, this may be a question for you, as you showed us yesterday projections on fund balance. These funds are not considered part of the unrestricted fund balance because we restricted those funds.
Right, these funds are sitting at 151.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure of.
Above and beyond.
Okay. Any other questions?
The spreadsheet where you showed how we are moving the money around from like obligated general fund to, is that in like the packet? Is it?
Not like a
Okay.
copy of it, but,
Well, no, I just thought if people were, looking at what we're doing at 2 PM today and wondering why we're moving stuff around, anyway, but that was a good spreadsheet that showed there's no additional dollars being allocated. We're
Correct.
moving them around to be able to maximize the use
Same
of
product
ARP.
and services are being purchased, different pots of money are being used, there's
Yes.
no net new anything. It's just using the right funds per the restrictions that come with state and federal dollars for the right products and services.
Thank you.
So, but that chart would be in that presentation from 2
Yes.
weeks ago, if anybody wants to look
Perfect.
at that.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to Kevin Norris. Getting everything checked off and everything.
Hi, everyone. I think I have a presentation for this. If we can get to that, there should have been one attached in the, it's okay if there isn't. That's just fine. What I want to talk about today is replacing Oracle PeopleSoft support with Rimini Street support for 1 year. The intent of our project is to gain BOCC approval to secure 1 year of comprehensive support, software support for PeopleSoft from Rimini Street in replacement of Oracle current support that we have. Budget impact would be a current year savings of $143,000. Status of our PeopleSoft support is currently Oracle provides and maintains maintenance and support for all county PeopleSoft modules. Our annual support renewal date for Oracle is June 1st of this year, so in about a month and a half. With Oracle support, we currently receive PeopleSoft and PeopleTools upgrades. We also receive all required tax and security updates. Specific security updates are for PeopleSoft itself, and then Java, which Oracle now owns along with PeopleSoft, and also WebLogic. The annual cost of the Oracle support is just under $300,000. It's $297,000. The last note, knowing that we're implementing Workday, we haven't done any upgrades on PeopleSoft since 2022. We haven't needed to, and we've avoided that just because we needed time to work on Workday. And the PeopleSoft upgrades themselves are very intense for IT and then also for all the staff. They have to go through the months-long testing processes associated with that. Moving to Rimini Street for support for 1 year of gap coverage. We will receive full maintenance coverage for PeopleSoft. We'll receive all required tax and security updates. There's no need for PeopleSoft and PeopleTool upgrades. And the annual cost of the Rimini Street support is $154,000, not $297,000. So we make a savings there of about $143,000. In what I thought I had included as an attachment, I do have a cost comparison. I'll get that out there under this agenda item after the meeting. I break down the Oracle support costs that are $297,980.28. The Remedy support costs of $154,648 for a difference of $143,332.28. So that's basically it. By going to Remedy Street, we save ourselves not only money, but we save a lot of time that we can focus specifically to PeopleSoft or to our Workday upgrade project. In the past, when we went away from PeopleSoft for a period of time, we had chosen in 2008 to go away from PeopleSoft. We chose Remedy Street back then, and we lived with their support for 4 years while we determined what product we wanted to go to next to replace PeopleSoft. What did the county do? We chose to go back to PeopleSoft. So we've made a different choice this time, but we do need coverage. This is really good coverage for the price. And the real benefit of this is that if we stick with PeopleSoft support, we likely would have to go through a PeopleTools upgrade this year, which would be a 30 to 45 deficit for IT staff, day deficit for us, and then literally months more training or testing to make sure that PeopleTools upgrade works. So to allow us with tax updates that we need to implement. We don't have the time for that. With Remedy Street, they'll provide the tax updates on our current release of PeopleSoft. So that's really the reason why we need to do this, in our opinion, and we're looking for your support. We currently have agreements and we have our SOW and an agreement out to our attorneys right now. Looking at that, we need to get through that. And once we get through that, it'll be in front of you for resolution if you approve us moving forward with this. Questions?
And so when PeopleSoft with the ERP system, it's going to, is Oracle own PeopleSoft and Workday?
Oracle owns PeopleSoft. They do not own Workday. Workday owns Workday.
Okay, so it is a separate system.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll just terminate all ties with, we still have the PeopleSoft product. That's all we'll have. We own it right now. So we can continue to use it, but we don't get maintenance once we move to Remedy Street from Oracle any longer. We'll rely on Remedy Street to provide that gap coverage. And the one item in our contract that I'm looking at, that I'm asking our attorneys to look at, is they're requiring a 90-day advance notice of us terminating our 1-year service. I'd like that to be changed to 30 days. It's just that gives us a little longer time to determine that we're good to go off of PeopleSoft, by this time next year, as opposed to continuing to have to stay with it.
Yeah, I think you answered my question. So this is, the proposal is to use this other company till you get to that point where you could switch over to the Workday products. Okay.
We're also looking at this for Questica right now and a product called Indian Tailor that is a bolt-on product. Indian Tailor is to PeopleSoft. We need to pay for licensing to continue to use that, but for their support, we may be able to save about another $20,000 this year and not using that. We really haven't used their support in the past. I think we can upgrade that also.
Appreciate you looking for all the ways to,
Yeah.
eliminate any waste there.
Just look at every single renewal that we have to see if it's,
Yes.
if we can do better. Always. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, and that's gonna take us to Doug Chase with the Southside Aquatic Play Structure Capital Project Award.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Couple items here today, and as you mentioned, our first relates to upgrading our aquatic play structure at the Southside Aquatic Facility. And Mr. Chambers here has been working lead on this project and has a great presentation.
Okay, good morning, thanks. So the aquatic play structure at Southside at Prairie View Park, Southside Aquatic. It's been identified in our capital improvement plan to be replaced this year. So I'll start with a little background. The aquatic play structure was installed in roughly 2007. It's got about a lifespan of approximately 15 years. The aquatic facility itself serves 466 people a day in 2023. Roughly 29,000 people in total for the year. So the structure, since its installation, has seen a lot of use. The project was identified in our 6-year park improvement plan. Funding was allocated in the capital budget on the sources REAP for $325,000. Next slide. So we put an RFP out for the aquatic structure, and just to kind of update you on what's happened also at the facility. In 2020, we added 2 additional slides. 2022, we built a building for expanded storage to better serve our patrons and the employees at the facility. Next slide, please. If we talk about the structure there and its current condition, the finishes have faded from sun and chlorine, so that structure is out year round, exposed to all the elements, and obviously in the aquatic season, it's exposed to cool chemicals. Some of the coatings are beginning to break down, allowing for corrosion on some of the platforms and the handrails. Plumbing connections are beginning to leak, which is reducing our performance and not utilizing the water appropriately. And some of the other failing components are resulting in increased maintenance and repair and downtime. And to further complicate it, replacement parts for that structure in particular become difficult. So it seems like our 15-year lifespan is showing, and it's time for us to update the structure. So if we go to the next slide, there's a few pictures of what the new structure may look like. The bottom left is real similar to what we'll probably land on. It's basically a plug and play. It'll use existing infrastructure. We will be replacing some of the plaster underneath and around the structure that, again, it's nearing its life. But the real benefits are the improved user experience. The new coatings on the structure have a 15 to 20 year lifespan instead of a 15. So we should have a longer usable life. It conforms to all the current safety requirements. And then we anticipate decreased maintenance, repair, and downtime expenses as the new one comes in. So the recommendation would be to please award the RFP in the amount of $324,540 to the lowest qualified bidder, which was Aquatech Solutions. And that would be on the next legislative session, I believe on the 23rd. And just for a quick timeline, once the project's awarded, the contractor can order the components, which are about a 12-week lead time. It'll be construction start in September, just after closing of aquatic season, and up and running for the 2025 aquatic season. So there'd be zero impact to this year's aquatic season.
So yeah, so then you anticipate it's go through this season, get it in this fall, be ready to go for next year.
Yeah. Yep. Correct.
So in terms of the breadth of the bidding, how broad a package did you have?
It was fairly broad. We kind of put it out like a design build, if you will. We were looking for specialized companies that do only aquatic structures. We had 2 bids come back, several reached out pre-bid, but only 2 submitted.
Yeah. Package will include engineering, all the permitting.
Right.
And it will be designed to fit and use the exact pump capacities that are currently in place.
So did the advertisement just stay in the United States or did it also include Canada?
Well, that's interesting. That's a great question. I do not know. I would assume just United States,
Okay,
but I can check for you and
if you would, appreciate it. My daughter manages projects like this and they buy a lot of their equipment out of Canada because of price. Get a pretty good price break and stuff. And so that's why I was curious as to, making sure that we're getting good competitive pricing.
yeah, I do know one of the bids was significantly over budget and they were trying to use a competitor manufacturer. The low bid came in, it looks like they're going to use the manufacturer of the existing structure, which keeps costs down because all the anchor plates match up, all the plumbing, the flows, everything.
Right.
We won't have to service it, change any pumps.
Okay.
I can
Yeah.
circle back with you.
If you need, let me know and I can get you the name of the couple of the companies.
Okay.
Just opportunity.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's the fun one. Our next item is just
Fun and fun one?
not really exciting, but we are proposing a few updates to our housing policy. The county we have to have two structures right now, residential, that are utilized, and we've been able to often place a law enforcement officer or other staff or personnel in the structures, and that we have a policy in place for that. And I'm taking all of Kirk's thunder, but I believe he recently recognized some opportunities to improve that and provide a little more specificity in the lease agreement, if you will. So there's more projectability. If, for example, we run into a lot of these folks can be a newer employee, say within law enforcement. We'd love to place law enforcement in these as extra eyes and ears. And they'll often acquire a house once they've settled in and leave the lease early. So we have more specific terms in there now. There'll be a little bit of a penalty to help cover that cost if that happens. And as well as with the pet policy. So, and then I'll let you fill in anything I may have missed, but that's effectively what we have.
Yeah, Doug hit it on the head there. So we've updated the pet policy to help protect us from damages and protect our patrons and provide some guidelines as to how a pet can be managed on the property if allowed. And then we also added some provisions for damages to the home in the way of cleaning and restoration once the tenant has moved out, that were not in the past housing agreement. So we did find opportunity as our last tenant left and left the lease early to update it for our homes that we're renting.
And where are the locations of those?
We have one home on Lincoln Road, which is on the east side of Antoine Conservation Area. And then we have another home out on called the Beach House at Liberty Lake. These are the two homes that we're currently renting. We have a third home that we're not renting at this time. It's out in the Haynes Conservation Area. Close.
Thank you, because I thought Liberty Lake Park was one of them.
Yes,
So-
it is.
Yes.
And
Mr. Chambers has had an opportunity to learn from experience, and so we're just trying to work in a few improvements there. And if all looks well, we'll have that before you on the 23rd during your legislative agenda. And I think we did include like the track changes, so if you're curious, you can see exactly the little adjustments there that we're proposing. But we think that will help improve going forward with that. And then I was hoping to give a 30-second update on another project, just an FYI. Our Yeah, Plants Ferry and Camas Meadows project, you may recall, we have combined those and we're going before the State Project Review Committee. And that happened here just this last Thursday, March 28th. Mr. Simmons was part of the presentation team, which was very helpful. And I'm really pleased to report it was, we were successful. We've been approved to proceed with the progressive design build alternative delivery method. And in fact, we had our first meeting yesterday afternoon for those to attend that were interested in potentially submitting their statement of qualifications. It was really well attended. So we were very, very pleased. Our owner's rep, our Turner Townsend and Erie, are helping us again with this one. They were very pleased with the turnout yesterday. So it looks like it was a really good move based on the talent that was in the room that is contemplating submitting on the project. So we're really pleased for that outcome, and you'll be hearing more as we progress with the selection process for the design build team. This will be the next step.
Great.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
I had just a cameo role. That was Doug and the team that was really spearheading this. They did a really good job. Our owner's rep really helped prep the team to be successful, and it was unanimous, right?
Yes.
All the members voted for it. So this is now our third as a county alternative design project that we've been approved for, which is exciting. We're going to get the track record and help set us up for some future ones, which I think is going to be on our radar here.
So how do you think your timetable might be influenced by this decision with regard to starting construction? Do you think that you might be in a position to where construction could start this year? Or are you thinking that next year is probably a more realistic timetable, or what does that look like?
You know, that came up yesterday. I think there's a possibility that certain items will be getting done this year, certain components at the different sites. And I think part of that will come from this process. The timing on it is we will work to have that final amount locked in, the guaranteed maximum price by, we're looking at November to have a sense. And so it's possible there could be elements that they're ready to proceed with in the fall, or they may choose to wait till spring. So I think it's just early enough that we're not sure, other than to know that it is an option. And that's part of what the design build team will look at as they, once they're onboarded, they will be completing all the design documents and basically locking in exactly what they'll be able to do and deliver for the budget that we have. And that will sequence out from there. So we're a little early to know sequencing, other than there's potential for it.
Well, as you know, I've been campaigning for a park in the West Plains since birth. And so, you know, it's great to see that we're finally moving forward with this project and stuff. And I know that folks out there in the West Plains and the neighborhood are anxious to see this improvement too. So if you think that there is a date to where, you know, when you could put a shovel in the ground, that we could kind of, even if we're not going to be able to do anything in terms of finishing it until next year, I think that would provide a great deal of assurance for folks out there that we're serious about moving forward with the project. So,
yeah,
and I'm free the second week in May. So if you can, no, just,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, just, anyway, thank you.
Hopefully have the selected
Nice
by
work,
June.
Doug. Yeah, nice work, Doug.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
you bet.
We're excited, and we will keep that absolutely in mind and on the forefront.
I'll just add to that, Doug's got a really good schedule for this, so we have great confidence that we'll have this obligated under contract by the end of the year, which satisfies our ARP requirements, and then constructed next year. I anticipate when we go through the validation phase, when we get select our contractor designer team, that will come back in front of you, because we have a very defined budget right now. When we, based on the preliminary estimates, we may be short in some areas, so the board has expressed some interest in looking at other funding sources, whether it's car rental taxes or hotel motel tax sources. So we'll come back when we have some better idea of what that looks like and where we might have some additional funding. If we can.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much.
Also, free the third week in May too. I'm just kidding.
Very good.
Thank you.
So Jesse. So let you come next. And then, yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Scraps here to provide everyone with an update on our advisory board. Yeah, kind of debuting the new logo there too, or updated logo rather. So as mentioned, advisory board brief, a couple of things we're going to cover today will be current membership, the frequency of meetings, roles and responsibilities, logistics of the meetings, and then a couple of the hurdles and goals. Next slide. So current membership, and taking into consideration, since we kind of got the ball re-rolling a few months ago, we're consolidating right now. Our frequency is monthly, and we're looking to change that up a little bit, which I'll cover later on in the slides. So current membership consists of 7 members, all are local agreement holders. 2 members from Spokane are Garrett Jones and Luis Garcia, city administrator and code enforcement and parking services. Spokane Valley representatives are Eric Lamb, deputy city manager, and Morgan Kabilka, senior administrative analyst. From Cheney is Mark Schuler, he's a city administrator as well. And from the county is Cole Upkeep and Melissa Williams. Cole is a canine trainer in rehabilitation, and Melissa spent about 30 years of her life in the animal experience. Interesting side note, Morgan and Mark from the Valley and Cheney were both previous members before the advisory board kind of disbanded during COVID. So it's good to have them back. They kind of set the tone, provided us with some back information from the past, and helped us move forward with this. Ma'am.
So question I have, since it looks like we've appointed citizens, and all the others are using administrators, is there a requirement that they have to use administrators, or they just are choosing to do that?
So I think they chose to do that. I don't, in any of the ILAs, it doesn't specify that it has to be a city administrator. I think they were just appointed once upon a time, and a couple of folks that were on the previous board saw the email come out and probably jumped on it.
Okay, thank you.
Short one here, frequency of meetings. Currently, we're doing monthly. However, since we filled all the advisory board positions, we are looking to move to the contractually stated quarterly meetings here in the near future. Everyone has roles and responsibilities of the advisory board. So provide an important link between the public, Scraps, and the Board of County Commissioners. The information provided by advisors about community needs and opinions have a profound effect on county policies and lead to improved service. Advisory committee members play a special role in creating recommendations on important societal and governmental issues. So kind of that pulse on the community that we're looking for. There's an education piece involved too, kind of giving them the information to pass out to the folks in their communities as well. Also interpret community opinions, attitudes, and needs to the department. Study programs and services and analyze problems and needs, offer new proposals and recommended changes in programs, policies, and standards. Provide the public with information and interpretation of department and county policies, programs, and budgets. The advisory committee supports and counsels departmental and commissioner staff and make important recommendations about policy. Most advisory committee does not create or administer policy programs or services, but provides an important link to the pulse of the community. Recommendations to SCRAP or the Board of County Commissioners. All ideas should be expressed in clear and concise language. Proposed solutions should be viable and cost effective. Recommendations should identify the reasons for the changes suggested. And advice should reflect consensus or a majority of the committee members. Logistics of the meetings include sending out an agenda. So we've got a meeting tomorrow. I sent out the meeting agenda yesterday. Sent out in advance of the board meeting, covers items discussed from previous meetings and are forwarded to scraps during the time in between meetings. Recommendations, actions and recommendations, citizen concerns, other issues brought forward by their advisory board representative. Board recommendations are considered, discussed during the scraps leadership or pathway meeting, and followed up after discussing the pros and cons and impact of those recommendations. Actionable items are recorded, investigated, and resolved. Follow-up conversation outlining the action is taken, passed along, and the loop is closed. Meeting minutes transcribed by the advisory board recorder, reviewed by scraps director, and sent out to each board member after the meeting. And future plans for that one is share topics discussed advisory board meeting minutes with the public by posting meeting minutes to scraps or the Scraps County website. Just kind of another layer of that transparency that we're wanting to provide. Some of the hurdles are advisory board membership requirements based off the difference between ILA holders. So there's a couple of little differences between the interlocal agreements that Scraps has. So one of the goals we're looking to do moving forward is standardize all the ILA format and language to the extent possible. Familiarize board members with the roles and responsibility of Scraps. The goal for that one would be public safety enforcement education, educating board members and the public. The hurdle I've got here is incorrect information being passed around the community. And that one is to relay the correct information, increase transparency, and set that record straight. You know, that was pretty quick. We'll open it up for questions and answers and discussion.
So how do you anticipate interacting with this advisory committee? And what do you think the dynamic is going to be between you and the committee?
That's a great question. So I think kind of going back to that pulse on the community, seeing how different people in different positions, whether they're part of their local government or they're a citizen, gives us that kind of broader scope of vision. And again, just goes back to what they're seeing, what they're interpreting, what they're hearing from in their localized areas, and how we can better serve the community or that localized area.
So I'm concerned with the schedule that says you're only going to meet quarterly. When we get emails daily. And if it takes a quarter to respond to a series of emails because of an event, you know, we're toast.
Sure.
I mean, one of the reasons, obviously, you're aware that we engaged the advisory committees so that we could start, you know, making sure that we had citizen input as we're, you know, providing the service and stuff. And so part of that is being responsive. And if we can't be responsive, then you create suspicion and you make your situation worse than it was before. So I just, you know, I'm concerned that you're suggesting that they only meet quarterly. I think it ought to be at least monthly. And, you know, and I think a focus should be, personally, part of that focus has got to be communication. Because right now, you know, the right or wrong, the narrative out there is that we're not doing our job right, and we've got to fix that. And so I believe you are doing your job right, but communication and engaging with the public has got to be part of that. And that's the reason why you have the third set of eyes.
Sure. So for the individual citizen complaints, those are sent into us, through not just advisory board, but all the ILA holders. So, and those are dealt with, and typically resolved within the first couple of days that they come out. So, those individual complaints, we're dealing with that as quickly as possible. For some of the pulse of the community stuff, we'll definitely reconsider the switching to quarterly and consider keeping it monthly for the time being.
And then I know Kat raised her hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Commissioner French, just because the meetings are quarterly doesn't mean that's the only communication between Jesse's team and the advisory board. We all have each other's contact information. If anything arises, comes up in between meetings, there's still communication going on there. It's not as though we only discuss, pulse in the community and those options whenever there's a scheduled meeting. We have an open line of communication with those advisory board members. So if they have anything that they're bringing forward that has a more urgent note to it, we're going to get on top of it. Jesse's team, you can probably ask all of your assistants, but Jesse's team is all over answering those citizen complaints as they come in. So I just wanted to kind of give him kudos for that and just let you know that he's worked really hard on building open lines of communication with all of our partners, to include the advisory board members.
Does the advisory board in the ILA, does it spell out like, are these roles and responsibilities on the slide? Are those taken from what the expectations of the advisory board are?
I'll grab this one, Jesse. So Jesse mentioned earlier that each of our ILAs are different.
Between the city and the
valley and Liberty Lake and Liberty Heights and Millwood, every one of them are different. Some of them mentioned an advisory board, some of them don't. Some of them have a little definition about it, some of them don't have definition. So what Jesse's tried to do is bring together kind of an amalgamated version of this. Some of them are 5 members, some of them state no membership at all. We have some opportunities within our ILAs. So that's what Jesse mentioned. As we have ILAs that expire and renew, we're going to synthesize those to make sure they're all consistent. They all have references to an advisory committee. They all have membership structure in there. They all have roles and responsibilities in there. So this is kind of taking different pieces of them and blending them together to say, here's kind of the things that we think the advisory board can be most impactful on. Reviewing hours of operations, days that we're open to the public and why not, and asking the questions, why wouldn't you be open like a Sunday or a Thursday? Well, when you look at actually the traffic that comes in, it's our slowest days of the month. It's an opportunity, slowest days of the week. So it's an opportunity for those interactions to go back. But also if they're seeing something or hearing something that maybe the team hadn't considered, the team could take that back and evaluate and say, oh, you know what, this might be an opportunity for us to change a policy or a procedure or a communication or those sort of things. So it's supposed to be kind of intentionally broad to help us make sure we're providing really solid service to our organization, to our community.
So far, how are the agendas created then? Do you guys have policies and programs that you bring forth to get feedback? Or do you solicit agenda items from the advisory board members?
So great question. So all the above. So what they're hearing, and I encourage them to, send in some of those bigger, why are we doing it this way? Or, can you expand on this type of questions to cover down during the meetings? And then wherever they're getting their citizen issues or something that they see on their way to a meeting, we'll take any and all of that. There hasn't been anything that we haven't answered yet or found a solution for. So we know we're heading in the right direction. We want to just provide that better service to the community with that pulse of the community.
Just follow up. So in the past, was the advisory board, were the meetings open to the public? And were there meeting minutes posted, or what was the practice? Just, I don't know what it was like before.
It's a great question. I don't know if it was before my time here. I think the advisory committee stopped meeting in the 2019 timeframe. So we have to go back and look and see what was on there. But the intention is These are all gonna be very similar to our boards and commissions everywhere else. Agendas, meeting minutes will be posted so that if any community member wants to go see, they go to the boards and commissions page, choose your committee, and you can see membership activity, anything that's happening and transpired with that committee. That's where these things are being set up today.
Some of the old meeting notes and agendas that we received that we were able to pull don't show that they were open to the public and don't show that they were posted. They could have been removed, but it's something that we're looking at. Again, I think it will decrease the workload after a little while when people can go back and find out if that had already been addressed, resolved, or if it's still a pending issue.
Yeah, I think it's really important that if you discuss hours of operation, that it's in the notes and that you have that posted so that folks know, oh, that was addressed, and oh, look, Scraps chose to listen to the advisory committee, and starting in 6 months, they're gonna be open a different hour. Or I think it's important not just to resolve concerns, but to show change based on feedback.
Sure.
Right?
That's
So that's still evolving, how, if the meetings will be posted or how, nothing has been, there's no bylaws or prescribed method in any of the.
There's, other than the ILAs have been the governing direction on it, and as I mentioned, they're completely inconsistent. So that's what Jesse's doing, is creating a consistent, repeatable process in here and ensuring that our meeting minutes our agendas are being posted, they're being set in advance. Minutes are being taken, minutes are being placed on on our web page as well as any discussion and dialogue that's happening during it. So.
Okay, so I see from Kat saying that, I don't know who Lynette Brown is, but just confirms that the advisory board meetings were not open to the public, posted to the website. And I guess I just want to check with legal that's appropriate. Okay.
Lynette is the office manager at Scraps. She's the one who's been there the longest and has the history.
Okay. Thank you.
So even though in the past, so I'm just trying to clarify, that might have not been the practice, you're aiming to put out the meeting agendas, post them, as well as meeting minutes. Okay. I think that's important for transparency, especially what Commissioner French was saying, just to make sure people know who's on the advisory board, that they are meeting, here are the items that are being discussed. So it is clear that that is happening.
We'll do that.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. So,
It's not here yet, so if you want to skip to some of the others.
yeah, but, and we're missing two, like hopefully Josh is back by 10:30 and I think Commissioner is back around 10:30. So do you want all the commissioners for the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and we will just go on with our miscellaneous. I know Commissioner Jordan was the one asking for the aging long-term care, but I think we've done that one in the past, so I think we can let's go ahead and do that. So we can move that one forward. I don't know who's Provider Appreciation Day.
Oh, that was, I think that was me, and then I think, is that also the one that Chris was supporting as well? No, that's just me then. That's just me.
Okay. So I'm just gonna just say in general, it's like I wanted.
We did this last year.
For,
is it healthcare provider?
Yeah.
No, daycare providers.
Daycare provider,
Okay, we did do this last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to be a little more specific.
I wasn't sure what provider.
You want me to use more words? Okay.
I know.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would just say, we seem to be doing a lot more proclamations, so I still would like them to be relevant. And, you know, I feel like we can get to the point where we could just be doing proclamations and it's not as relevant. So I'm just putting that out there.
But we could probably space them out though, like one of these could be the
Sometimes
first week of May and then the next one could be the next week,
it
right?
depends on the timing of like we're behind on the healthcare, the one we're doing today for the health district. National Public Health was last week. So, so we're like behind on the National Public Health one. We're doing the proclamation
Oh,
today.
right, because it
But it's
was
actually for last week, so we should have
that's
done
right.
it a week before. You know, to try to have it,
Right.
So anyway, you know, trying to figure that out. And so today's agenda is like National Corrections Officers Employees Week. It has May 5th through 11th, but the Detention Services Awards this week, so I think it's this week.
What I have on the table is that today is National Corrections Officers and Employees Week. This was requested by Chief Don Hooper.
Right.
For today.
Right, I'm just worried that we have May 5th through the 11th, and I think it's April, because the award ceremony
Thursday
is
night.
this, yeah, is tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
I think it is May.
Is it May?
Yeah, we don't.
5th through 11th, sorry.
I'm sorry, Patrick.
It is May 5th through 11th is the National Correctional Officers Week, which is what President Reagan established. So we're also, I think, not meeting next week. So wanted to get that one in early, but basically just trying to sequence these out as you were saying. So the awards night you're talking about, several commissioners are attending, is something a little bit different. But this week is actually celebrated May 5th to the 11th, which is what the proclamation speaks to.
And tomorrow's individual service awards from Detention Services.
Okay.
Standalone.
Okay, so you don't do that during the same time period as this. Okay. Things we're learning as we go through this. Okay.
And then today you also have, as you said, National Public Health Week. Dr. Velasquez and Kelly Hawkins, the PIO, will be here. For the NCOEW, Chief Don Hooper and some of his team from Detention Services will be here.
Okay, Dr. V and Kelly will be here.
You do have some other ones coming up during the month of April, if I may.
Sure.
All right, there's National Therapy Animal Day on April 23rd. Commissioner Jordan. Older Americans Month, Commissioner Jordan. And that would be April 30th. However, you also, if the board wants to do a proclamation for Bloomsday and for National Public Service, and
yeah, I mean, that's where I think we're getting to the, you know, trying to figure out what proclamations we want to do so they're relevant, instead of doing 5 proclamations every week that doesn't have the same relevancy and meaning to them. And that's just my opinion as one commissioner, because we haven't done a lot of proclamations. Usually they're, you know, it's like a couple a month maybe that we've done. And so.
Well, for example, on April 30th, the lineup is starting to look like Older Americans Month, Bloomsday, National Public Service, Expo 74, 50th anniversary.
I think the older is the only one you really want to focus on. The older one,
18 long-term care.
for my group, yeah. Just saying.
I mean, you could move that to the next week. I mean, it's
But
for the month of May. I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying about.
we've never done like
Maybe-
a Bloomsday or our, you know, Lilac Festival ones. We've never done
Okay.
those proclamations. That's city proclamations typically that are doing those. We haven't done them as the county. So I mean, I guess that's where it's like, I'm just trying to make it so when it's a proclamation from the county, it's special. You know, or we can say, you know, we're just gonna do every proclamation and do lots every week.
I'm at the direction of the board.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's just, I'm saying this out loud to the commissioners that we probably want to be a little more selective in what we're doing and choosing to do.
Did we get a request for the Bloom State one?
No, I'm just calling that to your attention.
Right, so I
That's all.
think go by request too, unless we have something you know, there's something very special with the county and anniversary or something, but I think if it's a requested one, I don't think we need to add more unless.
Yeah, and even some requested ones are
Yes,
not necessarily necessary.
Achievable.
I
You
do
know.
believe when I was at the city, the mayor got a lot of requests and had to choose no more than like 2 each week. And there were a lot. But sometimes you have to say, no. Yeah.
So,
Just a second.
So is there a reoccurring calendar of the ones that we do every year?
We've tried to put something together with that, and I think we also incorporated kind of what the city did, you know, and looked at that, and so. You know, just because the city does it, doesn't mean we have to do it, you know, and vice versa, so that's where it's like, I'm just seeing lots of proclamations come through, so I'm just raising the question to have us have a discussion about it. You know, it's because it's not on staff, they're just doing what we're asking them to do. And so I just was trying to, you know, say, have a discussion about it. Like the 50th anniversary of Expo 74. I mean, I think that's definitely appropriate. It's the anniversary that's not very often. So I could see doing a proclamation for that. Hopefully there's a bridge that'll be done in time for it, so.
what about?
Yeah, well, and we only do it once every 50 years, so I mean, that's the other part of
I
it.
guess that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can put it on the calendar though.
Commissioner French, I think it's worth noting that during Expo 74, they were talking about that north-south freeway.
Oh, I know. Been talking about it when I was born.
What about National Public Service?
Have we done that before? I guess I don't know.
We also have National Public Works Week later in May.
Yes, I think we both.
I think that's a good.
And we have done that.
Yes.
So no Lilac Festival, no Bloomsday, Expo 74 and National Public Works Week. Now, I've already taken care of the
And then
proclamation.
Just a second, Kat had her hand up. Kat?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is there a way to promote something without it being a proclamation? I mean, could we have a blurb on our website saying, you know, help us in celebrating, you know, National Public Service Workers Day? I mean, are there other ways that we can acknowledge it as a county that's kind of simple, like a banner ribbon on the website versus a full proclamation? That way your full proclamations remain special like you were trying?
Yes, we could do that.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Kat. How do the commissioners feel about that?
You guys decide that though.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I mean, that's the problem, is that we would have to decide as the commissioners that that's what we want to put up on the banner.
Or put on a post
Or
or.
put on a,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and we saw how that went with, you know, when we had that one use group that came in. So,
So for the ones we say no to, we just say at the direction of the chair, we're saying no. You're not worthy enough, or no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I mean,
just providing the discussion.
No, I
I'm only one
know.
commissioner.
well, but you raise a good point, and that, you know, where's the bar that says we're either gonna do a proclamation or we're not, and you're right, we've gotten a lot more here lately and stuff, so it is becoming more challenging.
So,
Maybe we set a limit for the month, and then once we've received those requests and approved them, we tell folks, you know, come back next year and send it in. I don't know. I don't know what they do in the
and
city.
I'm happy to just see how it goes. I guess I'm just pointing this out for us to think about. I mean, we've got two commissioners that aren't with us right now. So, I mean, we can have the discussion next month. It sounds like we kind of.
But we've already, it
narrowed
sounds like
some
we've
stuff
narrowed it
in.
down a little bit here.
Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit. You know, it'd be, you know, for me, for like the public service, you know, it'd be better to do something through HR that does something out to our people in public service versus a proclamation. They're gonna be like, oh, okay, you know, is that really that special or not? I don't know. So I mean, so that's when I would think HR could do something, you know, for our employees to put out there. You know, I'm just like, there is I think I'd have to ask Brenda, but there was somebody in South County that won the State Knowledge Bowl. You know, so it's like.
It was the high school Spangle.
Liberty, I think.
Liberty High School in Spangle.
So, cool. So it's like, do we want to every time and say state championship, whatever it is, do a proclamation to support that? So I haven't brought that forward yet, you know, because sometimes it seems like we don't have that many state championships, but then we actually have more than you think.
Suddenly we're getting, yeah.
You know, so anyway, so that's part of what made me think about it too, is like throwing that out there is like, how do we, you know, I mean, we certainly can have a policy on high school. If it's a state championship, we want to do a proclamation for anyone in the county. You know, I don't know. I mean, those are things that again, as things have come up and I'm hearing them, I'm just trying to put some thoughts out there. Patrick, I see you raised your hand.
I know thank you. Martha Lou had also put together some draft correspondence documents for you all that are appropriate for recognizing community achievements. And I think all of your staff have those. For instance, the Garland Theater was recently reopened and a commissioner wanted to send a letter on that. And so some of these may lend themselves more to just a note of congratulations versus a board-wide action. The other point about putting things on the website or social media, we're recognizing all kinds of additional things like that on a daily basis that don't rise to the level of board action, you know, sharing news articles or media coverage of some significant event. So happy to provide other avenues and not just a no to a community group that has something they think is significant. But I do like the idea of setting a limit. I also like the idea when I was in front of the board talking about the proclamation protocols our office uses about having a more defined role for each of your staff to maybe even get involved and get some experience writing the proclamations and gathering the information for them. So as we've taken on more proclamations, sometimes the community provides a draft and sometimes we have to go research it. And that just adds a little bit more bandwidth to, you know, to my team's work as well. So could be an opportunity for staff to get more experience with writing and certainly to get that community engagement experience by talking to people in the community and working with them on these. There was a request at one point to like have phonetic pronunciation of names, and I think that's another good one for your individual staff to be working on. So just some feedback for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So, okay. So there we go. So we do have our list then for right now. Okay.
I'll update it and I'll send it to the board as well as their assistants.
Okay.
So.
Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your work on all of that.
You bet.
We have one more miscellaneous and then I think we'll go to
Question for you though. Well, for the board, I guess. We have not identified, to my knowledge, maybe we haven't, I just am not up to speed. But is there anything that we plan on doing for the 50th anniversary of Expo? I mean, is that?
well, I know we gave funding to Visit Spokane. ARP.
Okay, that's what, okay. So we have participated in some fashion toward that celebration. Okay, that I just couldn't remember. Thank you.
That's a good idea though, to call that out though.
Yeah.
That, you know, the city's contributed, the county, like everyone visits Spokane, there's a lot of entities that are contributing to the efforts.
Well, actually, along those lines, the last time the board met, on a Tuesday morning prior to spring break. Commissioner French, you brought that up and I said I'd put together a proposal
Yeah.
and I have one for you.
Oh, great. Okay.
So if you could pass those down.
Look at there. I'm your lead man.
Yes, you are. I don't have
Scripted
one.
it.
Oh, yeah, I'll take them. There we go.
You gave them all away.
I did. This has also been seen by Pat Bell and by Scott Simmons. You know, Commissioner French asked that question 2 weeks ago. And so this is a proposal for the pleasure of the board. The county courthouse could be lit in the colors of the Expo 74 logo, which would be to the west, it would be green. In the center, it would be white or rather clear. And then to the east, it would be blue. Now, I checked with facilities director Gil, and he said he would have to order blue plastic light covers. And so the attached quote is for your consideration, it would be just a few bucks over $350. And of course, the blue covers could be reused. Also, I spoke with the Expo 74 committee, and they're talking about ordering a banner that would hang from the courthouse tower. Gil recommends that the dimensions are 4 feet by 8 feet, and it would hang right over the front entrance where the clear lights would be. Then on Tuesday, April 30th, the Expo 74 committee would have representatives at your 2 p.m. meeting. They would receive a proclamation declaring May 4th to July 4th as the 50th anniversary celebration of Expo 74 in Spokane County. And they in turn, if they can find the money and they approve it, they in turn will present the board with the banner, and photos could be taken, news release sent to the media. Then on Friday, May 3rd, a lighting ceremony in front of the county courthouse, similar to what we did for Operation Greenlight. And the county commissionaries, some local dignitaries from Expo would be there. Now, the city of Spokane will kick off their celebration the next evening in Riverfront Park on May 4th. But the courthouse would remain lit in those colors with the banner from May 3rd through July 4th.
So we haven't had a banner that long on the courthouse.
Gil says you have.
Really?
The adoption banner. He gave me those dimensions specifically.
Right, but not that, the length of time.
Oh, I see what
Because-
you're saying.
Because my fear is having a banner hang that long against the brick would be damaging in the wind and all of that, that it would be like more of a banners that I've known have been more of like a 1 day kind of thing, where we've had the banner go down for a day. I don't think, have you ever? I mean, during COVID, we just kind of put the banner down and we took it back up, took pictures. I don't know if any other time.
Yeah, I was thinking, how long did we have the banner when we were doing the thing with the governor? On the front of the bit, remember you and,
Right, that was just like 1 day.
was that just one
We
day?
just put
Okay,
it down, took pictures, and then actually then kind of,
rolled it back up.
yeah. It's not
Okay,
a long stay, because I'd be worried about just wind and all of that, and I
Yeah.
mean, having just lighting at my house that, you know, damages the sign. That would be, I mean, I think it'd be great for the day.
Well, I think it'd be great for Bloomsday too, that weekend. Cause think of all the people running by the courthouse that would see the banner. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
We could figure out what would be the appropriate time, but I like the idea of the banner, but maybe, yeah,
Well,
maybe
and
not for the
then-
full 4 months.
Well, and then 2 months, and then
Oh,
after Bloomsday, there's Lilac Festival Week as well.
Right, but
So we could have it up for 2 weeks.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's where I'd really want to talk to Gil.
Oh, yeah.
On what that would be.
Yeah.
Ashley, you're,
Yeah, so what we've typically done is about a weekend. So since I've been here, if we're doing a career fair, Bloom's Day, something like that, it's a weekend and that's it. And it's for that reason, Mary. Also, they tend to fall down pretty easily. They fold over. It's a lot of effort for facilities. So when we've come to career fairs and things like that, the most we've intentionally done on like Bloom's Day weekend, for example, last year we found for a hiring sign, it's 2 or 3 days at the most. And then we're pulling that down before it is making damage or the wind's blowing it. Like there was one over here the other day, actually, that got folded over and looked like garbage, right? So they're pretty intentional with not leaving them up for more than a weekend at the most. Yeah.
and I would say, I mean, I don't even remember that we're hiring. But those should be coming to the board for approval before anything's hung. I think we've talked about that with the judges, that, you know, it still needs to have board approval.
We're hiring, wasn't that on the Public Works?
Yeah, it was over here on.
It was,
So it wasn't.
and I did notice it got a little.
Yeah.
When I had the,
PG.
yeah, got a little, what does it say? It got a little crumpled, yeah.
So I'm all in for a banner. I just think we've got to look at what the length of time would be appropriate. And talk to Gil about that. But yes. Good job on
This
the
is awesome.
proposal.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll talk to Gil. And I'll send you an email about his recommendations. But I do think having the banner up for Bloom's Day is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if we do it that Friday, and then I could come down Monday morning. Any longer than that, I just worry that.
Maybe you could go back up again that, you know, right at the end for the July 4th celebrations or something, yeah.
Yeah, we got, which, all right, have him save the banner and we could talk about it that way.
For the 50 years from, you know. Oh, no, we have to change it, 100 years.
Well, the free one might be done by then.
Optimist.
And then Martha Lou, would you check with Visit Spokane, or I don't know if it's you or Jeff McMorris, to see what they're doing with the ARP dollars that we gave them for the celebration?
Yeah.
Jeff's got a pretty good idea.
Okay.
It'd also be nice to get a schedule of events. I requested that a number of times through a variety of different venues and still don't have a schedule of who's doing what to who on what day.
I will get that for you, Commissioner, and I'll
That'd
send
be
it
great,
to the
thank
board.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's been interesting. Like I didn't even know that you could contribute or any of that, and there's all kinds of things that are going on.
How much was contributed?
It's like a $75 to be listed as a supporter of the Expo 74 anniversary.
How much did we give in ARP?
Not us, this is personal.
Individual.
Yeah, it's like a way to, everyone to participate and raise money for the efforts.
So, I mean, that hasn't, it's never talked about to any of us. I've found out in a different meeting about it. So I think there's information that would be nice for all of us to get.
All right, I'll make sure that you get
Is that a nice way to say it? Thank you.
Commissioner, we have 450,000 of ARP, is this again, for including, we have 2,074. They haven't submitted any bills towards it yet. So they submitted some staffing. They haven't submitted anything else, so we don't know what.
So maybe we should work with Commissioner Kearns, who sits on the board, to find out.
Gave him an update this morning because he's with them right now.
So maybe he'll have more information.
They've provided a sheet of what they want to do and we've told them what's allowed. However, we don't have any details beyond that.
450,000. Okay.
They've spent about 50 to 75.
49,999.
But they had something right on top of that. 50, maybe a bit more on a consultant helping with organizing things.
And then I thought that then Matt Santangelo was hired to
And
specifically.
he got 49,999
Okay,
because they didn't hire him the way we suggested. He got cut off
okay.
because that's as far as they could spend the way they chose to do it. Is that polite? I don't know.
Yes. Pat, go ahead.
We wrap up, I just wanted to clarify two things. The board in the past meeting had asked for a press release about EWU's Giving Joy Day proclamation. Is there desire on the board to send out a press release about today's proclamations?
Today's Oregon.
What was?
Oh,
the Public Health Week, it's kind of already.
It's already over.
So.
So I would say no, not this time, because then National Corrections Officers isn't until May. So yeah, I would say at this point, this isn't one I would be worried about.
Okay, and then
I think we want
another-
to keep track of, as we do press releases, is it getting any press? So is there a purpose to it? So.
yeah, generally speaking, proclamations are not going to be newsworthy. We can call your attention to any that we think will be. The other question is there anything on the board's legislative agenda that we anticipate the board would desire a press release on?
I don't have anything that's going to mind.
Yeah, let me circle back with you, Patrick. I might have something.
Okay, we can talk about it at the 2 o'clock meeting as well. Just trying to be responsive to your all's request for more proactive board items.
But we need to talk about this board, otherwise it's.
Yeah.
We already got a good article on the Liberty Lake improvements. So that was good.
And we got an article on the helicopter.
Bear Lake.
Is there, have they done something on Bear Lake already? Or
A
that's.
preview,
Okay.
and then we have the
I'm saying
groundbreaking
about
on.
meetings next week in DC and stuff. I'm gonna be meeting with FEMA and EPA and a bunch of others and stuff. I don't know whether. I gotta think about whether it makes any sense to do anything with that, either before or maybe after. So,
Yeah, I think he was just talking about our 2 o'clock agenda.
yeah, I don't have anything for that.
Okay, not your legislative agenda, can you go back to DC?
No.
So I'm sorry, I was talking with Mr. Amacio. Do you want a news release about the proclamations today?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I can confirm with Gil that the most we've ever hung a banner is 2 days.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. I didn't think it was for very long. So. So we will chat with him if it should just be for the day, or if we can move it up through maybe Monday morning. Okay. Here's my. Back to our regularly scheduled agenda. Okay, we did not, the last miscellaneous was Monroe Court.
Yes. So on the board's agenda this afternoon is the purchase and sale agreement. Consideration for approval for purchase of the Monroe Court building. I've done a couple quick slides here just as a reminder for the commissioners. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. The first, go to the next slide, is just a quick overview of the parcel information, location of it, the acreage. We still have to validate the square footage. It was listed at 8,000. Our public record shows 71,000. So that'll come out through our feasibility process, and it has about 187 apartments. The another next slide is just another visual of the location. In relation to the campus, and then the front picture of the building. And then the following slide, just a quick summary of the details of the purchase and sale agreement. The purchase price that we've agreed to is $12 million. Earnest money would be $150,000 via promissory note. We do have a feasibility contingency period of 90 days. We do have the option of extending that for another 60 if we need it, at which time we pay $50,000. If we walked away from the deal, we forfeit the 50. Otherwise, that 50 gets applied to the purchase price at closing. Closing period would take place 30 days after the close of the contingency period. And right now, as we understand it, the vacancy in the building is about 20,000 square feet and about 50,000 square feet under longer term or term leases that we have. So these have been, the purchase sale agreement has been reviewed by legal and by risk management. So they've had their changes that we've made back in it through our broker. Other than that, happy to take any questions. It is on the consent this afternoon.
Okay, and I do just want to note that Commissioner Jordan has joined the meeting and Commissioner Kearns is back in the meeting as well. So. Any questions on the purchase and sale agreement details for Scott? Amber?
So the contingency period, is that to give us a chance to see, like, dig into anything more about the facility, or do we feel comfortable in that gives us more time to understand the systems, the building systems, make sure that we're comfortable with the purchase?
Yep, we'll do a review of all the building envelope, the building systems, the roof, internal, anything structural. We'll get a chance to do title report. We'll look at any environmental conditions. So all that, it would be our due diligence period to make sure that what we're purchasing or think about purchasing is what we believe we're purchasing.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I also anticipate we'll be doing some sort of energy audit during that time as well.
Okay. Then that's gonna take us back to our last item on today's agenda is item I, or L, sorry. Funding improvements to US Corridor 195.
Yeah.
Rich?
Thank you, and I believe, do we have the presentation or the slides here?
Yeah, I emailed it.
Okay,
Rebecca.
so just for a little bit of background,
Jim Frank joining us.
we're trying to get a hold of him and we haven't been able to get in touch with him. He was just coming back from New Zealand, so not exactly sure what the delay might be. We do have Mr. Cogan here, who has been working as a consultant to Jim. Are you familiar with?
Yeah, I tried to get a hold of Jim this morning.
Yeah.
He spent last week in Hawaii with his family for spring break, but I thought he was back in town.
Yeah.
So I left 2 messages for him.
So, in the absence, I will go ahead and give you a rundown on what the current conversation is. I think I've already briefed you before that on December 14th, I did a town hall meeting. But let me back up a little bit. And when I used to be on the planning commission for the city back in the 1990s, we had identified that the Latah Valley would be a prime area for residential development. And the city came in and said, well, we want to put 20,000 residents in there. And but at the time, Stan Sterling, who I think many of you knew with Taylor Engineering, and I were on the planning commission and also very familiar with the Eagle Ridge, and knew that the infrastructure would not support that kind of development. And so we said, no, not unless you got WashDOT on board. So city staff and WashDOT spent about 3 months developing a plan, which included providing a frontage road that would run from Hastings Road clear up to Sunset Boulevard, and would cost about $49 million. And that would then provide transportation connectivity for the valley that would not rely on 195 as a collector arterial. The state, the 195 is a T2 freight corridor, federally designated freight corridor. And WashDOT is very, very committed to making sure that they protect the integrity of 195 for freight. And so they have resisted allowing the city to use that corridor for local transportation. A good example of why WashDOT is so committed to this position is if you look in Coeur d'Alene, US 95, which is also a T2 corridor, Coeur d'Alene ended up commercializing that corridor. And now truck traffic that used to take 15 minutes to get from the south end of Coeur d'Alene to the north end now takes almost an hour. And that's what WashDOT is trying to prevent happening for 195. The other issue is safety. You know, coming on and off that corridor, where the posted speed limit is 55, they've had a number of fatalities on the corridor. They've been trying to avoid increasing the use of it that would jeopardize the safety of either freight or local. So the project has sat idle for 25 years. The city has not invested into the frontage road. And so the city and the state have reached an impasse. The state is not approving any more development projects in the corridor. The city has about 3,800 housing units that are in the queue for permitting, but without the frontage road and the other improvements, which include a fire station, which include a park, which includes fire access, which includes sidewalks and the frontage road, with a variety of other smaller projects. All of those are projects that from a capital facilities plan, and we know going through what we've gone through here at the county, that the state requires those capital facilities to be in place within 6 years of the development. We're now 25 years and they're not in place. So the neighborhood has worked for the last couple of years trying to say, when is it going to happen? When do we get infrastructure in the valley? And the city has said, well, it's coming, but no specific plan on how or when or who will pay for it. They've gone through a moratorium. Moratorium ended up with a impact fee structure that is not practical at the I think it's for traffic impact for a residential house. It's like almost $14,000 per house and stuff. So when Eagle Ridge was done, it was $1,000 per house. So anyway, so the city doesn't have any money, and the way the city's structured, they do not have a road tax. Everything comes out of the general fund. So there's no funding mechanism to be able to pay for the infrastructure. So I went through and developed a TIF and lift zone for 195, and then put numbers to it, working with developers and neighborhood to say, you know, if we had a plan where we could commit dollars to build infrastructure, would the neighborhood approve or support, would the neighborhood support the city releasing permits to allow for more residential construction to go on? And so in that town hall meeting, probably about 85% of the folks that were there, and there was probably about 100 people there, people from the city, the state, fire department, and local neighborhoods. They said, yeah, we would support that if we knew for sure that you were going to actually build the infrastructure and there was a way to pay for it. Since then, the chairman of the neighborhood council has informed me that they're now 100% in support of this proposal. So this does not involve, so initially it was just the 195 corridor, but then as others became more engaged with this, and this is Jim Frank and looking at that whole area, I will look at, I'll do this as I apologize, Chris, that you won't be able to see this, but each one of these red dots is a track for tax purposes. And so if you were doing just 195, this is Eagle Ridge, this is Highline, a residential park, and here's 195 connecting up to I-90. So all of these tracks here would be included inside the city. But there's infrastructure that feeds to the west that services county property. And so these properties are county properties that could also be included for infrastructure. Yes, go ahead, Roy.
Jim Frank just called. He's on the phone with Victoria. He may call him.
Oh, okay. Okay. So they're gonna transfer Jim in. So if this was expanded to where it included county property that is prime for residential development, all the cost, there's no county dollars into this. All of it would be paid for by developers, just like we did with Liberty Lake, just like we did with Kendall Yards. Developer pays for the infrastructure and then gets reimbursed from the revenue generated from the development. And so there's no county dollars at risk at all for any of this. The infrastructure, the frontage road, working with Gavin Cooley, the frontage road could be paid for from the city's Spokane Investment Pool, which is their investment loan tool that's available. And Gavin said, you know, we could structure a loan from the SIP to pay for the frontage road, which is probably going to be closer to about $60 million, but with a guaranteed revenue source that they could retire that out of the revenue and stuff. So this Gavin ran his numbers. I ran my numbers. Jim Frank has run numbers. All of us come up with, on a minimum, about $100 million of infrastructure revenue that could be put into this area to allow for residential development. Like I said, the city has sitting now about 3,800 units that could be released if in fact we had a mechanism to pay for the infrastructure. And so this would basically free up construction on about 3,800 units. WashDOT, so I'll take this one step further. Todd Trepanere with WashDOT and Larry Larson and Greg Fig and Shar were at this presentation. And Todd came up to me after the meeting and said, this is a great tool. Could we use this to fund state transportation projects? And I thought, well, that's interesting. I never even thought about that. But if you created some language that says that if a city or county created a TIF or LIF zone and there was a state project in that zone, the state then could use state revenue, sales tax and property tax to invest into the state's infrastructure. So I did talk to Mike Volz and he likes it. I talked to Andy Billick. He really liked it. He said, I don't have access to more transportation funding. This would get me access to more money for state infrastructure, and it would guarantee that the money would stay here as opposed to being flexed to other projects on the other side of the state. So he said, this would be a great tool to be able to get more transportation dollars in Spokane and not have to worry about them being flexed to the other side. So from the Senate side and from the House side, I got two people that are saying, yeah, this makes great sense. WashDOT now is taking a very positive, supportive approach to getting that language in place. Just met with Mike Volz yesterday. We're going to work on the language to present it as part of the legislative package for next year. But so all of these stars are lining up to where now Jim is proposing excuse me, and I support it. The county going ahead and establishing the TIF and LIFT, and then having the city join us for that part of the area that's inside the city limits. We obviously, can't do anything in the city, but the city can join our tip lift. So it would improve county property, fronts on I-90, approve 195, and give us a way to pay for that infrastructure and open up that area for residential development. So that's the proposal. We have, Jim has been working with members of the city council to get them on board. So we think we're at a point where we need to go ahead and formally get it on the table for board consideration and see if we'd be willing to do this. Similar, I mean, quite frankly, it's very similar to what we're doing with Jim up at Costco. And what we did with Jim in Liberty Lake. We've got a proven model. Can we put it in place here too? So, and I don't know whether Jim is.
He's on the Zoom.
Oh, Jim, are you on?
Yeah, I am.
Jim, go ahead and turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on this. I've been working with the Spokane home builders and a variety of landowners and developers in Lake Tahoe and Grandview, and then I've also been working with folks in the neighborhood there. And this is an area very similar to the north side of the freeway in Liberty Lake, where there just is a huge deficit of infrastructure in this area, both transportation infrastructure and sewer and water system infrastructure. And if development is going to occur in this area, we've got to find a way to finance that infrastructure. And I think if that infrastructure is not financed, then you just simply won't see very much development out here, because there just aren't the road transportation systems and sewer water systems that will support much additional growth. So we've been looking to what's the most logical and most effective way of financing that infrastructure. And I, just our experience in working with TIF districts and LIFT districts at Liberty Lake and Kendall Yards has given us a lot of experience with it. And so I've talked to the developers out there about, their willingness to participate in a program like this. Most of the responsibility for the infrastructure then falls on the developers. They have to front up the cost of most of the infrastructure, and then they ultimately get paid back when they make their private investment in housing or other development activities in the area. So the tax benefits and the income to support the infrastructure comes from that new private investment that's being made in the area. And it really has been very successful at Liberty Lake. You can see how successful it's been, and eventually resulted in enough money to build the Kramer Bridge over I-90, and major park facilities and major roadway systems and Liberty Lake. So I think the same opportunity exists here. There's a lot of developers here. There's probably 10 or 12 kind of major developers. And so I've been working with all of them, and they've been funding some of the studies and so forth. So we've put together an estimate of the revenue that could be generated based on the SRTC data from their most recent traffic analysis that goes to 2045. And they've got these TAS zones. And so we took the traffic growth data that they projected from these TAS zones. And then we put together a project list, and and Al, I don't think you've seen, or the commissioners haven't seen the most recent project list, but the project list has been evolving because it's involved information from not only the landowners, but from the city of Spokane and from the neighborhood there in terms of what everybody sees the potential need. And so we've been working on that. We've had numerous meetings recently with city council members, with city staff, and with the mayor's office. And I do think that there's strong support at the city level for a TIF. And we're, and I think they're ready to work together with the county commissioners. And I do think this is an opportunity to have the city and the county work together on something that's very important and something that will facilitate growth in this area. And the recent moratoriums that have been imposed in that area, there's probably, there's legitimate concerns on the part of the neighbors for the lack of infrastructure. And my conversations with the neighborhood are that they're very open to this and excited about it. I think they see an opportunity to have some real infrastructure happen in their neighborhood. I don't think, while there may be a handful of people that don't want any development at all, I think most of the people in that neighborhood are not opposed to development. They're simply opposed to development that doesn't have infrastructure to support it. And I think that's a legitimate concern. And so I think the city sees that, and it's possible that some of these big projects, like if you get involved with I-90 and 195 interchange, that's a big project. And so there's a question about how that's going to be financed and who's going to finance it. And is it bond or is it the state or so forth? So there's a lot of opportunity to leverage this money and end up with not only this money, but leverage additional funds. And that's really what's happened at Liberty Lake. You've been able to leverage the TIF money with other state funding, other sources of funding. And so you're able to leverage the money and do more. So I think that we're at a point where I think there's support on the city side. If there's support on the county side, I think there's an opportunity for the city and county to work together on something that's very important. So thank you.
And the project list is up on the screen, and I do have that as a handout, as well as part of the financial projections that the Jim has provided. When I was working with Todd Truppinair with WashDOT, we identified that there's probably about $600 million of revenue available through the TIF and LIFT using state funds, not local funds, state funds. Again, keep in mind, the state collects 6.5 cents in sales tax and then the property tax. But just through sales tax, they figured that there was probably about 600 million there. That would pay for a new interchange at 195 and I-90, and it would also pay for a new bridge at Latah Valley. So those two key infrastructure projects could be paid for by the state. Jim has provided a very detailed analysis of local projects, and then we've also reached out to the neighborhood to get input from the neighborhood on neighborhood projects like a community park, like a fire station, like bicycle paths and things like that. So we're going to have a pretty good comprehensive package that will make for some significant investment in that area, not only capital investment, but also meeting a housing need that is close to downtown, close to arterials. It could be a very bikeable, walkable area in town that's already inside the UGA. So This is, I think, a great opportunity. Really appreciate all the work that Jim and his partners have contributed to this effort.
Commissioner French, I'd like to just make a couple of clarifications, and Roy Kogan can maybe weigh in on this. We have taken a look at the statutes, and it doesn't look like the local sales tax increment can overlap with a property tax TIF under 3989. So it may be that the state sales tax increment can still be used for state projects, as you've indicated, but the local sales tax increment doesn't look like it can be included, because the LFR district can't overlap with the TIF district, as we understand it at state law. So I think Roy could clarify that for you. The other thing that I wanted to clarify is that we have proposed from our side, from the development side, and in the conversations we've had with the city, was that 25% of the TIF money would be set aside for affordable housing. So so that would be 25% of the property tax increment would be set aside for affordable housing, and that could be included in the ordinance. And that's very similar to the approach that the city took in the West Quadrant TIF. And then, and by the way, that doesn't mean that set aside for affordable housing can be used. It has to be permanently affordable housing, 80% of median income or less. But that doesn't mean that it can't be private sector constructed housing or nonprofit constructed housing. It can be either. And so I wanted to make that clarification. So that's the way we proposed it, and that's the way we've presented it to the city.
So the request is to have the board authorize staff to go ahead and put together the documents necessary to establish the TIF and to start to identify, one, the boundary. I mean, Jim has already provided based on the task zones a boundary definition, but then also formalize a project list that then the board could formally adopt and put into place, and then have the city piggyback off of that effort with regard to what would happen in the 195 corridor. So that's the request.
Sure.
Yeah, Roy.
Roy Kogan, Public Finance Consultants. I'm here representing both Bluefern Development and Jim Frank. And Mr. Frank has asked us, based on our history of TIFs, to do the original draft of documents, which we would turn over to the county. And we've done so, and they're based upon the other TIFs that we've done. So we drafted the resolution calling a public hearing. We drafted the resolution creating. We drafted a fire district agreement. We drafted a library district agreement. We drafted the city county agreement. It's patterned after Beacon Hill City County wants to draft it. So we're trying to finalize those documents to get the best drafts available. We'll circulate them to the president this week to get final comments. And then it's our intent to turn them over to Mr. Anderson and Mr. Maceo, have them become, you modify them, of course, as the county would deem appropriate. And it will become the county's documents. But what we did is the same thing we've done 5 or 6 times for you before.
And one of the things that we've been trying to push as from a timing standpoint, if we could get this in place before the construction season gets geared up, we take advantage of a lot of construction dollars, sales tax dollars. And when we were talking about the presentation yesterday from Mr. Bischoff, the one thing that we're not seeing is a lot of sales tax for new construction. This could be the impetus to create some new construction and new revenue coming into the community that otherwise might not be available and stuff. So that was the urgency around it is more about trying to take advantage of construction season.
Yeah, Mr. French, thank you for putting up the list of public improvements. We also, and again, we're trying to get this finalized, have a different map. People to put out those public improvements to the map, so the commissioners can see where everything is. We are trying to, so in order to form TIF, the public improvements have to comply with the comprehensive plan of the city of the county. And we're in the process of confirming that that's true. I was thinking of timing, you know, and what's required to get this formed. So the county has a two-touch rule for resolutions to form it. So that's a couple of weeks. Then we have to give 10 days notice of the public hearing. The city has a two-touch rule. They haven't seen the agreements yet, but we'll get those out this week. So, you know, time, as they say, is our biggest enemy right now. And it just takes, then the county would have a two-touch meeting rule to form the TIF if they decide to do so, to consider that resolution. We've had conversations with city staff, with the city council president. I don't know where that would be on their agenda. I don't know. But they've been very preliminary, so we're trying to dig deep now once we get all of our documents.
Mr. Mulgrew. Well, I appreciate all the work that you and Jim Frank have put into this, Commissioner French. Lots of creative thought process. I probably have about 20 or 30 questions. Just from, you know, the comp plan, like what were the assumptions made around growth in the county, growth in the city, which projects are in the city or in the county, because if you don't include the city projects and you just created a county TIF, I don't think you can create a county TIF and include all the city projects.
It's a partnership between the city and the county.
So I mean,
similar to what we did with Kendall Yards, quite frankly.
So I would love to get with city and figure out if they're interested, what analysis they've done about which projects, you know, like their utility projects. There's just a million questions that I have. And I think that the city is key. So I don't know what the next step is to get some sort of joint meeting with the city or have a joint briefing or have them be briefed and then come back and talk about if they're interested in any of this. I know in the county parcels that you indicate, it's all city water and sewer. So it really requires a partnership. And so I would just want to know, you know, where the city is and if they're willing to partner.
If I may comment, in order to form the TIF, we have to have the consent of the taxing jurisdictions that levy 75% of the regular property taxes. So we have to have city consent. So from my view is once we get public improvements, Jim did a good job putting them up, which I think it was good news on, solidify. Once we confirm the costs, once we get the maps together, my suggestion, a joint meeting or the developers could read people separately, county commissioners separately, city council separately. But I think, you know, we're working very, very hard to get the right kind of information to the right commissioners. Almost there, but lots of questions that deserve consideration. Lots of questions that deserve answering. So I support that 100%. I know the 100%.
Yeah, so I think the next step is to study it and have our county staff look at it, city staff that manage the roads, the utilities. And I guess the first thing is just finding out if city leadership are interested in a partnership.
And Commissioner Kearns.
Commissioner French, I was gonna add, so your list of the projects. Is there any way we could get a map that kind of puts a pin where each, oh, Royce, okay, awesome. Can you kind of tell me, what's the distribution as far as in the city versus in the county? And then I guess my other question would be, is it common that, I mean, you've got two major roadways. I mean, you got 195 and I-90 kind of going out. Is it common to kind of take development along two roads that are kind of headed in different direction and sort of pool that money? I'm just asking, is that going to create issues kind of if there's money raised sort of on the development out I-90, if that funding goes to projects on 195 or vice versa, development out 195 and anything that's built over on that, does that create an issue?
Jim, do you want to try and tackle that? Otherwise I can tackle it.
Yeah, I mean, you need to create an arterial road system that allows circulation without driving people to 395 and I-90. And that's really the same problem that we had at Mead Works project. We had to create an arterial system so that the local traffic can be, you're not putting local traffic routes on these state and interstate routes. And so Thorpe Road, for example, is a major project, and we do have a map. It's we do have a map that we put the projects on, but we're trying to create Thorpe Road as a major connector between downtown Spokane and then heading to through the Latah Valley and then out to the West Plains. And so one of the projects is a bridge over 195 at Thorpe Road that allows that traffic to, you allow a route for the traffic in Latah Valley and Grandview to get to downtown without having to go on 195 or on I-90. And so it's not on the project list that you have there, because this project list has been evolving. And I haven't been able to be in contact with Commissioner French in the last 10 days or so. I was traveling on spring break with my grandkids. So, but we do have some updated information on the projects. We've been working with the city utility department. We've been working with the city on the road improvement projects. And we've been working with the neighborhood. So the project list is still a work in process. And we do have a map, and all of these things, all the points that you've raised are very important points, and there needs to be some real clarity about all of this. So I do like the idea of having a joint meeting where everybody can ask questions and everybody's hearing the same story from the same group of people. But the idea is that there has to be a local road network that supports this growth without funneling local access trips onto these state routes and I-90.
So just so I'm clear as a follow-up, so this is not necessarily to, I mean, based on, I mean, as I'm looking at these projects, it's not necessarily based to increase capacity of 195. It's to take people off of 195 and give them a different route.
Yeah.
Not to necessarily.
Yeah, we're not looking at, the state controls 195 and they will control the volume and nature of the traffic on 195. The state's goal is to keep local collector traffic off of 195. And so, as Jim has indicated, that local network, you know, and again, as I started, the original plan was a frontage road that would go from Hastings all the way up to Sunset Boulevard. Well, that would have been a great asset had it been built, but we're 25 years down the road and it's no more built today than it was 25 years ago. So, you know, we've got to be able to have these investments in infrastructure to support the growth that we want to see. And, you know, when you talk about, you know, the comp plan either for the city or the county or even the State Growth Management Act, I mean, this land is close to the downtown area. It's inside the UGA. It's already immediately adjacent to a lot of other assets. But what we lack is a road infrastructure and some other amenities to make that neighborhood developable to the level that it could be developed. And Jim's right. My list here is 10 days out of date, and it is an evolving list. We've got projects from neighborhoods coming, and you know, we've got projects from the developer, projects from the city and the county. But ultimately, all of that will go onto a list, and the revenue and the allocation of the revenue to those projects would have to be identified as well. So,
Just a second, Commissioner Waldron.
So I just wanted to clarify, Jim, you said that the LFR cannot be overlaid in terms of your reading with the TIF. So we need to redo that. That needs to be adjusted in any kind of the financial projections.
Yes, that's accurate. And we've redone the financial projections as well based on removing that local sales tax increment. And then I did the projections that I did went out 15 years on the property tax increment, and I redid it and went out 20 years on the property tax increment. And if you go 20 years, you actually create more money than the sales tax increment did over the entire period. So, and also I want to be clear that a big chunk of this money is connection fees and impact fees from developers. So we've included the sewer and water connection fees and the traffic impact fees. And I will tell you that I do think that the city has transportation mitigation fees in this area. The county does not. And I've told Commissioner French, and I'll tell all of you that I do think in this area, if you do form this district, in this district boundary, I do believe that the county should impose transportation mitigation fees on the development in this area. I think it creates a bit of an unjust situation if the developers in the city are paying mitigation fees for traffic and those in the county are not. And I think that the traffic mitigation fees are a fair and legitimate expense on development. And I'm not suggesting that the city at this point do the county do a countywide transportation mitigation fee program, but for this district, for the boundary of this district, I would recommend that the board review and look at transportation mitigation fees in this area. It doesn't have to happen at the same time that the district is formed, but within the next year or so, I think it's a worthwhile subject.
Okay, I've got Commissioner Jordan with a question, and Roy, you had something you wanted to add. So who do you want to go first, or can I go to Commissioner? Okay,
please.
Go ahead, Roy. Maybe you'll answer my question, so go ahead.
I was going to say two things. One, the statutes are clear. Commissioner Jordan, since you're a lawyer, 39.104.050 prohibits overlapping LIP districts and 89 districts. That's number one. Number two, Commissioner Kearns asked for a map. Well, we have a list of the improvements, and the current list, a couple of days old, and we have a map. The improvements are lettered and the map's lettered. I don't want to release these too soon until I get final sign off by both Mr. Frank and folks at Blue Fern, the two major developing groups. Hopefully we can get that done this week. We do owe all the elected officials a map that shows the TIF district in an understandable way and where the particular improvements are going to be and what the cost is. So we are proceeding as quickly as we can to get that done.
Okay, Commissioner Jordan.
Well, thanks for all the hard work. Can you hear me okay, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say thanks for all the work to bring this idea forward. Really appreciate it. Look forward to more conversation and getting those questions answered. I would agree it'd be a sensible next step to kind of reach out to the city, gauge that interest and partnership. I'd be happy to participate in a joint meeting or anything of the sort. And so I will work to kind of create my list of questions and figure out how to get those answered. But just kind of curious off the top, is the two part on the map. I presume that the district boundaries are solely up to the jurisdictions to decide. So maybe Roy can help me just understanding the guidance from RCW on that and what the thought is on who to include and who not to include. So that's number one. Number two, similar question on the project list. Is that something that is in RCW that is required? And if so, is it just illustrative? Is it up to the jurisdictions to pretty much decide what the dollars are? Any guidelines in terms of how we go about making those decisions? So thank you.
Commissioner Jordan, the boundaries of the district are going to be absolutely at the discretion of the Board of County Commissioners as the forming entity. That being said, again, we have to have the consent of the taxing districts that levy 75% of the real property taxes within that proposed district. So we do need the consent of the city with respect to what the boundaries are going to be. With respect to public improvements, we thought we owed it to the decision makers to provide a list and estimated cost of the proposed public improvements. In the creating documents, we also though provide that we can finance public improvements that are currently authorized by the statute or as amended. So one specific, because we thought we owed detail with cost of projects, one general in case something else pops up in 3 years that we haven't thought about. So it includes both. And the way that agreements work, and again, this is patterned after, I'm thinking about city-county relationships, and over this my career, we've had great collaborative projects between the city and the county. So when we did Beacon Hill, the city wanted to have control over the projects within the city limits, and they wanted the ability to bid those improvements out and construct them. So we've taken that model that we negotiated. I represent the county with the city attorney's office. We negotiated that structure out, and that's what we're proposing because we're expecting that to come from the city. We have not had conversations with the city attorney's office yet. Other than they know there's talk. I ran into one of the city attorneys in charge of the city TIP projects, and he has heard conversations going around the city. I just have not been a part of those.
So Roy, can I just clarify? So sounds like you're saying the project list was included to be helpful, right? To try and illustrate what's possible.
Yes.
But it's subject to what the jurisdictions would choose to fund in the future with that revenue, correct?
I think it's a two-part answer. What's possible and then what's required for the development. in order to proceed. So it's a combination, but the bottom line, it's up to the jurisdictions.
So
And can I ask one more? Oh,
Yes.
sorry, go ahead. Okay,
Go ahead,
just,
Commissioner.
just to make sure, because I'm still gonna play the new guy card here, being in my first term. Haven't been around for previous, lifts and TIFs. Can you just clarify for me? I appreciate Commissioner French saying that the revenue does not come from county general fund. It's a tax increment, right, on increases in assessed value. Can someone just give a real clear definition of the source of the revenue, for the record?
Okay.
Sure.
So historically, the county has used chapter 39.89 RCW. That chapter provides that 75% of the increased assessed value would go into a TIF fund to pay for public improvements. So when we form a TIF, we establish a base value, what the assessed value is at that particular time when it's formed. And as the years progress and development comes in, that assessed value goes up. So the county continues to get everything, and the city and all the other taxing districts continue to get everything at the base value level. And as the taxes increase, the TIF fund gets 75% of that increase. 45% of that increase goes to the taxing jurisdictions. The other statutes transfer 100% of the revenue to the TIF fund, but the one that we've always used has the county share of that and all the taxing districts share on that increase prior to the retirement of any public, the cost of any public improvements. And then at which time that increase goes completely to the various taxing jurisdictions.
Thank you.
So I think you're wanting a decision today, but I don't see it.
Oh, no, I don't think, no, I wanted to get it on the table and prime it for a decision, but I don't know that you're at a position. I think you've got some questions you need to get answered and stuff. But at least I want to get us moving in a direction and stuff. And so if we can, and it sounds like there's enough energy here to you know, one, reach out to the city, and I know that Jim has done an incredible amount of work on the city side of it to prep them and so, but just formal designation of saying, yeah, we're gonna see if we can put this together and see if we can be able to you know, provide funding for infrastructure.
Chris.
And I just wanted to say that I certainly appreciate Roy being here and providing all of this information today. Did want to reiterate what Roy said earlier to the board, which is that because we do have, you know, relationships with Roy on other projects, that Roy is representing Mr. Frank and the other developers groups on this. And so legal will be reviewing all of this. If you have any follow-up legal questions, just remember that for this project specifically, you do not share attorney-client privilege with Roy. So.
Okay. And I believe
Chris is very true.
Deanna might be on the line if we wanted to ask her, but I think we're at the point where there's too many questions to let be asked and thought about. So I don't think we're in any kind of situation to be starting any kind of documents at this point in time. But
I think there's a lot of assumptions around the growth that need to be explored. You know, that the dollars that would be generated are based on assumptions of growth of housing and other, you know, types of development.
Yeah.
So that just needs to be explored further so we can understand how the numbers are.
And I'm looking at the spreadsheet and there's like set asides for affordable housing, which has not even been discussed or any of that. So I mean, I've got tons of questions, so that need to be answered.
You don't need to answer anything here.
Oh, no, I want to answer you.
So I think it's for another day, because I know we're getting to the time. So I don't, anyway, it's up to you, Madam Chair.
I think it's gonna be better if we can kind of formulate our questions, you know, now that we've gotten this presentation and this is the first time seeing it. As to what all this means, and so, you know, and then come back I don't know, the question will be, do we want to have a joint city-county meeting to come back and really answer questions that we all have? Or do we want to do another county meeting first before we meet with the city? You know, before I think we're willing to, ready to move forward with stuff.
Would recommend a meeting of us first before.
Okay. Yeah.
I would think that would probably benefit us, make sure we're all headed in the right direction before we add 7 more people into the discussion. So.
Yeah, but we're gonna need them to be willing to go forward as well. So I think, you know, and it just seems like things are still changing for you guys as you, the maps aren't finalized, the project list isn't finalized, so there's still a lot that you guys are still working on as we look to move forward with this. So Jim, I want to say thank you very much for being here and helping answer questions. And I see Deanna. So Deanna, you've been listening, so you know kind of where we're thinking. Commissioner French.
Yeah, so I know that 3 of us are going to be in DC next week for the GSI fly-in and other work. So would I'd like to kind of put it on our schedule for the following Monday to you know, explore this in greater detail and start to dig into it. That way we can give Mr. Frank and Mr. Cogan and others time to you know, formalize what they've got. We can have a more substantive conversation.
I would probably add, just because next week is going to be a busy week. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to have time to. The rest of my week is very busy this week, and then I'm going to be out of town next week, and being out of town, I'm not going to have time to dive into it by that Monday. So I would ask for
Maybe
help
Tuesday?
the following strategic planning meeting that we put it on that.
On the 6th of May.
Pushes us out almost a full month.
Yeah, the next strategic planning meetings are the 22nd of April and the 6th of May. Unless you want to, of course, schedule one on the 29th of April. That's also your flexibility to do that.
We still need to meet with the city and all of that after that. But I mean, is there a time crunch that it has to be done right away?
Well, the urgency around it is taking advantage of a construction season that you know, will be.
We're not gonna get to a construction season this year with this. I don't see reality of that.
Well, yeah, I guess I'd like to certainly push toward that if possible. Otherwise, the city's high centered without some kind of formal funding mechanism to pay for infrastructure. There won't be anything that's going to happen because WashDOT's not going to approve projects to move forward, and so we're going to basically be high centered and stuff. So I think that's one of the elements of urgency is to try and.
You mean construction of houses, not necessarily the construction of the projects. I think that's what you mean, correct?
Yeah, but WashDOT needs to know that we have a funding mechanism to pay for infrastructure that's going to prevent more traffic onto 195. Otherwise, they're not going to sign off on projects that are in the queue for construction this year.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
So I'm still not sure that we can meet that timeline.
Well, I mean, you know, without a goal, you'll never hit it. So certainly like to be able to set that as a goal.
So I'm still gonna support the 6th, May 6th, to have it back on our agenda. Any other pushback to that?
Because some of my questions, I'll need updated documents, right? Like the updated financials and the maps and also an understanding of the assumptions of growth. I'm mostly interested in the county portion. Since that is the area, if I'm understanding from the map, That's the area that we've talked about doing joint planning with the city, since it's city water and sewer, but it's county UGA.
Up on
So,
West Plains.
right, along 90. And I know that's an area that we're looking at exploring and putting into our comp plan update. So that's just why I have a lot of questions about how that would work out in a short time frame.
So it's already in the UGA.
Right. So the type of growth, I know we're talking about whether or not we could accommodate more growth in that area rather than, you know, we've had lots of comp plan amendments for, you know, medium versus low density growth, development. And so that's been a conversation. So it's an important ongoing conversation because the assumptions of growth in that area would really determine the tax increment that you would generate towards projects. So anyway, that's why I think it needs a greater conversation in the sense of our planning and growth plans for that area.
I think May 6th is gonna be.
But I totally agree that we need to make infrastructure investments. It just maybe this conversation takes a little bit longer to make sure we understand and have an understanding with the city about what that growth would look like if they're gonna be providing the water and sewer as well, so. Anyway, there's.
Oh, Commissioner Jordan?
I'm okay with May 6th. I think picking a follow-up conversation that allows us all to do our homework, so to speak, will be a better use of time ultimately.
Okay, so we'll put it on the agenda for May 6th for the strategic planning meeting on that Monday. And give people a chance to ask a lot of questions and get some answers and then we'll have a robust conversation on that day. Okay, is there anything else that's gonna come before us today? We've got some executive sessions. We've gone through all our miscellaneous. Was there any other miscellaneous items? Nope, okay. So.
Madam Chair, is Chrissy in the room? She had reminded me there was some proclamations to mention, but you might have discussed it earlier this morning.
We've already taken care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. We had time in between some other things, and so we took care of the proclamations, so. Okay, so. Executive sessions.
Two of them.
Okay.
Got two. Yeah, so I've got two pending potential litigation executive sessions, both pursuant to RCW 4231-10-1I. The first isn't going to involve the board, myself, Randy Bischoff, and Jim Amacio. Jim, how much time do you think we need for that?
That's the one I sent the board the information on yesterday. I would think that would maybe take 10 or 15 minutes, Madam Chair.
So 15 minutes for that one. The second one will involve the board, Scott Simmons, myself, Kyle Tuig, and Rob Lindsay as well. Scott, how much time do you estimate that will?
5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes for that one, and then I believe Scott has a third one.
I could wait for this afternoon, honestly.
Okay, so we'll wait for the afternoon. I have a appointment at 12:30, so I will be leaving right at the end of 20 minutes. So if we extend, I will not be in the extension time. So it is now 11:51, and we're going to go into executive session for 20 minutes for the two reasons stated with the people stated. So at the end of that, there's no decisions anticipated.
No decisions anticipated.
Okay, no decisions will be anticipated. So at the end of that time frame, we will adjourn for the morning and we'll reconvene at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And Mr. Jordan, your hand is still up. Is there something else? No, okay.
Oh, sorry.